Chapter 5:11. This time, I know what I am fighting for. Killing is no longer just for pleasure. The moment I stood up from the pile of enemy corpses, I have never felt the meaning of living so clearly before. Although what I feel is not as strong as Elvis's, it is enough for me to thank you. Oritin was expressionless and his tone was calm but firm. This made Gu Mengmeng believe that he was not being courteous or trying to flatter her, but sincere. Feeling the meaning of living. This sentence seemed familiar. Gu Mengmeng recalled that she had heard Elvis say something similar before. Before he established Saint Nazaire, he roamed around, causing trouble, and fought one battle after another just to seek the thrill of killing. In the end, even killing made him numb. At that time, his biggest doubt was, why did he want to live? So when he met Leah and Leah suggested to create a tribe, he agreed out of boredom. And Leah at that time also did not have the meaning of living. He was struggling at death's door just for revenge. Oritin, was it the same? Gu Mengmeng did not delve into Oritin's past. She now understood that if you did not want to be responsible for a male, you should not interfere too much with his life. Gu Mengmeng poured a cup of honey water for Oritin and said, I don't know what you felt in this battle, but thank you for still being alive. Oritin was taken aback. He took the cup from Gu Mengmeng and held it with both hands. He stared at the ripples in the cup in a daze and his lips curled up without replying. So, this was the feeling of being alive. Gu Mengmeng looked at Ian again. That sickly young man's face was filled with conflict. He did not dare to look at Gu Mengmeng but kept sneaking glances at her from the corner of his eyes. Gu Mengmeng smiled and said, You looked so resolute and reliable when you asked me to get on. Why did you become so awkward after not seeing me for a few days? Ian glared angrily and said, Don't tell anyone else that I asked you to get on my back. I was in a hurry to save you, that's why I did that. Don't misunderstand, I did not ask you to do that because I like you. Gu Mengmeng revealed an expression that was even more horrified than Ian's. Say it clearly, what did I do to you? Leah hugged Gu Mengmeng's waist and whispered into her ear, back riding is a very sacred ritual. Once a male is willing to let you sit on his back, it means that he is willing to pledge his loyalty to you and be your slave for life. Many males, even if they were to mate, might not be willing to let their females ride on their backs. If there was one last bit of pride a male would have in front of a female, it would probably be the matter of getting on her back. Just look at Sandy. Although all her partners treated her very well, the only one who was willing to carry her on his back was her first partner, Bode. No matter how much Colin loves her, he will only hold her or carry her, and will never let her ride on his back. Gu Mengmeng tilted her head and said, But the day Elvis brought me back to the tribe, he carried me back to the cave. Leah smiled and tapped Gu Mengmeng's little nose, saying, That's why I said, in Elvis's heart, nothing is more important than you. His tribe is like this, his clansmen are like this, his friends are like this, even he himself is like this. Chapter 5:12. Gu Mengmeng picked up the stone bowl and scooped a big bowl of meat before turning to walk into the house. When she passed by Ian, she said, Don't worry, I will definitely not tell anyone about this. I guarantee that when you mate in the future, you will still be innocent. Ian blushed and shrugged off Gu Mengmeng's hand with his shoulders shaking. He muttered, Just talk, don't touch me. Gu Mengmeng chuckled and ignored Ian's awkwardness. She just carried the bowl into the house. Looking at Gu Mengmeng's back view, Leah waved his big tail and instructed Oritin to stay behind to watch over Gu Mengmeng, just in case. Meanwhile, he continued to interrogate Cole and interrogate him about the whereabouts of the little wolves. He knew that as long as the little wolves were not found, the gloominess on Gu Mengmeng's face would not disappear. But he did not mention that he was also the one who carried her on his back. Hubby. Gu Mengmeng called out sweetly before lying beside Elvis's bed. She smiled at Elvis, who did not dare to move because of her insistence. She said, "Are you hungry? The food that Leah cooked today is super delicious. Let me feed you." Elvis cleared his throat and said, "Actually, after advancing to the 5th level, I realized that my body's recovery ability has become stronger. These external injuries are more or less healed. I can take care of myself now." But Gu Meng Meng did not comply. She pressed her hands lightly on Elvis's shoulders, who was trying to sit up. She pouted and said, "I am your wife. I should have the right to take care of you, right? You were injured so badly because of me. If I don't do anything for you, I will feel very uneasy." Elvis rubbed Gu Mingming's little head helplessly and said, "I am just afraid that it will be hard on you." Gu Mengmeng smiled and said, "How can it be hard to take care of my own hubby? Come, open your mouth." Elvis was a little embarrassed and ashamed. But he still opened his mouth with a stiff expression. Gu Mengmeng sent the spoon into his mouth and he quickly ate the food on the spoon. Then, he shut his mouth and lowered his head. He looked at Gu Mengmeng helplessly and tenderly. Gu Mengmeng realized that the tips of Elvis's ears were pink. So, she fiddled with his ears mischievously and said, "You are actually blushing after being fed by your own wife." Elvis cleared his throat and said, "Males have always been the ones taking care of females, since when has a female ever fed a male?" Gu Mengmeng said, "So what? Huda and the other 3 are also males." Halfway through her sentence, Gu Mengmeng suddenly could not continue. She unconsciously turned to look at the still unconscious Qi Xian. Gu Mingming's brows were tightly knitted together. Elvis propped himself up and pulled Gu Mengmeng into his arms. He rested his chin on Gu Mingming's head and sighed softly. "Don't worry, aren't I and Leah here? The wolf cubs would definitely be fine. Trust me, okay?" Gu Mengmeng knew that her emotions would affect the entire family's emotions. Be it Elvis or Leah, they were all trying their best to think of a solution for her. She could no longer use her sadness to pressure them. Rubbing her face, Gu Mengmeng forced herself to smile and said, "I know, I believe you." Elvis nodded and kissed Gu Mingming's little face lightly, before finishing the entire bowl of meat. Chapter 5:13. Gu Mengmeng looked at Li's tired face and sighed softly. She forced herself to be calm and asked, "Is Cole still not willing to tell me where he hid the little wolves?" Leah shook his head and said, "He wants to see Elvis. He said he will only tell this news to Elvis." Gu Mengmeng and Elvis looked at each other and asked in confusion, "Tell Elvis?" Leah nodded and said, "That's strange. He clearly knows that Elvis is risking his life not for the little wolves but for you. There is a limit to how much he can use the little wolves to force Elvis to give in. If it was for his own benefit, he should have requested to see you. Firstly, you are the one who values the little wolves the most. There is nothing you would not agree to for the little wolves. Secondly, you are the messenger of the beast deity. Your words are equivalent to the words of God. Almost no one in the entire beast world dares to go against you. But he wants to see Elvis instead of you." Gu Mengmeng also felt that it was strange. She held on to Elvis's arm and asked, "Is he unhappy that we used the backlash of the mating contract to trick him, so he wants to seek revenge on you?" Elvis laughed coldly and said, "Seek revenge on me? That's good. I haven't even settled the score with him for making you suffer." Gu Mengmeng pulled Elvis, who was about to stand up and leave. She said, "But his skills are above yours and your injuries have not fully recovered." Elvis rubbed Gu Mingming's little head and said, "You are my lifesaver. As long as I see you, all my injuries will be healed." He was greeted by Leah in the dungeon for 2 days. "His condition must be much worse than mine." "Don't worry, I will be fine." "But..." Gu Mengmeng wanted to say something but was hugged by Leah. His warm chest pressed against Gu Mingming's back. He turned his face to Gu Mingming's ear and whispered, "Let him go. If he doesn't vent, he will go crazy. Ha! Gu Mingming's brain could not keep up with the rhythm. She watched as Elvis had already entered into the night while Leah was behind her, rubbing against her neck to find a comfortable position. She sighed softly and said, "During the days when you were not around, Elvis was almost driven crazy by his own imagination. If he did not tear Cole into pieces, his anger would never dissipate. Although he is much gentler now, don't forget what kind of person he used to be." Gu Mengmeng remained silent for a moment before saying, "What about you? You must have been worried sick." He kissed the side of Gu Mingming's face and carried her back to the bed, hugging her as they lay on the bed. His furry large tail covered Gu Mingming's body like a blanket, while his slender fingers brushed past Gu Mingming's face and stopped at her delicate chin. He pinched it lightly and she lifted her face to meet his long and affectionate eyes. Gu Mingming's smile froze for a moment, then she looked up and met his long and passionate eyes. "Yes, I was worried sick. I was afraid that you would fall in love with Cole's tail, which was thicker than mine, afraid that you would fall for Cole's fox's seductive fragrance with his sweet words, afraid that you would not be able to resist Cole's temptation and pounce on him. I was afraid that you would look down on me, a mere third level, after falling in love with a fifth level Cole. So, I cut off Cole's tail so that he would never be able to secrete the fox's seductive fragrance to seduce you. If not for the fact that I still need him to account for the little wolves, I might have cut off his tongue. Do you feel heartache?" The expression on Lee's face was cold, as if he was a sick and arrogant child, using his bad to attract his parents' attention. Aside from the topic. Chapter 5:14. Gu Mengmeng cupped Lee's face with both her hands and smiled, "Although I'm a heavy furry lover, I don't like all dirty things. I'm also very picky, alright." Lee's large tail swayed and he finally landed back into Gu Mingming's arms. He kissed Gu Mingming's forehead and asked, "Then do you like me?" Gu Mengmeng hugged Lee's large tail and stroked it in satisfaction. "If you know what first love means to a girl, you won't ask such a stupid question." Leo was confused and asked, "What's first love?" Gu Mengmeng thought for a while and answered, "First love is the first time a girl shyly gives her entire heart to a boy. She clearly doesn't know anything but longs for eternity. She blindly believes that as long as she holds on to this pair of hands, she can walk to the end of the world. This boy becomes the mentor of a girl's love. From then on, all the love affairs of a girl's life will be influenced by this first love, intentionally or unintentionally. If there are 3 men a girl can never forget, it would probably be Daddy, first love, and the first man who turned her from a girl into a woman." Leah suddenly laughed as he listened. He held Gu Mingming's hand and kissed it, saying, "2 of the 3 men in your life that you can never forget are me." Gu Mengmeng was taken aback and did not understand what Leah meant. Leah pointed at his nose and said, "First love, and Daddy." Gu Mengmeng burst into laughter and said, "Daddy refers to those who are blood-related, not you." Leah was a little disappointed and said, "It's rare to win against Elvis." Gu Mengmeng smiled helplessly and did not reply. Leah kept his smile and hugged Gu Mengmeng tightly in his arms, not letting her see how sad and regretful he was. Enlightenment, shyly giving out her entire heart for the first time, she had longed for an eternity. Everything was shattered by his stupidity. "I am not a competent first love, right?" Leah asked softly. Gu Mengmeng did not answer but asked back, "Before me, did you have any love experience?" Leah shook his head without any hesitation. Gu Mengmeng asked, "So, I am also your first love, right?" Leah lowered his head and looked into Gu Mingming's eyes, asking, "Do males also have first love?" Gu Mengmeng smiled. "Of course, everyone has a precious first love. It happens once in a lifetime." Leah smiled and kissed Gu Mingming's little face. "That's great, I finally have something precious to give you, my first love. Luckily it's you." Gu Mengmeng shook her head and said, "Your first love was not that great. You met a playboy like me, who was willful and stubborn. I couldn't give you a complete love, but I didn't let you give up on me either. I even caused you to fall to the point where you had to become a pet beast. Strictly speaking, your first love was trash, the type that would make you wonder how blind you were back then. Chapter 5:15. On the other side, Elvis arrived at the dark dungeon. Males all had night vision and there was no need for torches or other light sources in the dungeon, so there were no windows here. In the absolute darkness, Elvis and Cole could see each other clearly. Cole's tail was broken and he looked pathetic and weak. He raised his head to look at Elvis, who was emitting a murderous aura, but he did not show any fear or hatred. He just maintained his usual smile, distant and polite. "Do you want to know where your sons are?" Cole spoke first. Elvis snorted coldly and said, "Not really. You better get rid of them before I find them. That way, it might be easier for me to kill you." Cole did not seem surprised and just nodded. "You are indeed a male beast that grew up among the stray beasts. You can be so cold to your own cubs and not care about life and death." Elvis moved his neck as a warm-up and then stared coldly at Cole, as though he was ready to attack any time. Cole waved his hands and said, "Don't look at me like that. My tail is broken and I can't maintain my balance. Don't talk about fighting, even if you open the door now, I might not be able to escape. I called you here because I have another deal to discuss with you." Elvis said coldly, not interested. Cole saw that Elvis was about to turn and leave and sneered. "Not interested in Augu either." Just as Cole finished his sentence, Elvis's sharp claws had already strangled his neck. His sinister and bloodthirsty eyes emitted a faint blue light, like the stare of the Grim Reaper. It was suffocating and chilling. "I said before, you are not allowed to call him that." Cole could no longer breathe but his lips maintained a fake smile. He looked back at Elvis's eyes with a hint of provocation. Elvis shook Cole off before he breathed his last. "What do you want to say to me? Hurry up and say it." Cole coughed twice and then weakly took a few deep breaths. After he had caught his breath, he continued. "You don't care about the life and death of those wolf cubs, but Augu cares a lot. If I return these 4 wolf cubs to you, Augu will definitely be very happy. You don't have to stare at me like that. She has tacitly agreed to address me as Augu." Elvis clenched his teeth but resisted the urge to tear Cole apart. He did not want to see Gu Mengmeng suddenly stop talking when she unintentionally mentioned the little wolf pups, then forcefully hold back her emotions and tears, pretending that nothing had happened. Although those 4 fellows kept snatching Gu Mengmeng away, but he would never do anything that would make Xiao Meng sad. Conditions. Elvis did not believe that Cole would be so kind as to give him his life-saving chip just like that. Cole nodded approvingly. "It's impossible to survive after touching your female. Now that I don't have a tail, I've become a crippled beast. Living is better than dying. So I won't beg you to let me go." Elvis laughed coldly. "That's the best." Cole nodded as well, having reached a consensus with Elvis on this point. Then, he shook off the dust on his body and said, "If you kill Leah, I will return those 3 wolf pups to you, and even save the unconscious one. I heard Augu call him Qi Xian, right? What a strange name, it must have been given by Augu." Chapter 5:16. Cole nodded and said, "I want him dead and I want you to kill him personally." Elvis snorted coldly and said, "I refuse." Cole revealed a surprised expression for the first time and looked at Elvis and asked, "Aren't you jealous that Leah is so good at pleasing Augu? Aren't you worried that he will replace you one day?" Elvis thought about it and said honestly, "Jealous, I have been jealous from the start." Cole continued, "Now that I have given you a dignified reason to get rid of him, even if Augu pursues the matter in the future, you can say that you had no choice but to sacrifice Leah for the little wolf cub." Leah is not Agu's partner, he is just a beast pet. There are people more handsome than him in the snow fox tribe, why not find a more obedient beast pet for Agu? But you actually rejected him. Why? Don't tell me it is because you have gone through life and death with Leah that you can't bear to kill your own brother. If that is the case, I will be disappointed in stray beasts. Elvis looked at Cole expressionlessly and waited for him to finish before saying, "You are very noisy." Cole choked for a moment, he really could not understand Elvis's thinking. Stray beasts had always been concerned about their own pleasure and did not care about the consequences. After the mating mark was washed away, he had fully experienced how happy this feeling of not caring about anything was. If he had known that the so-called stray beasts lived such a carefree life, he would have killed Jillian with his own hands long ago. That way, he would definitely not end up like this. Elvis was born a stray beast and the blood flowing in his veins should be selfish. But he could tolerate having Leah by Gu Mingming's side. Cole did not understand, he really did not understand. If they were in different positions, he would definitely kill Leah without hesitation. Why? Why did you reject me? Cole's eyes were bloodshot and filled with indignation. Elvis said, "If Leah dies, Xiao Meng will be sad. I will not do anything that will make Xiao Meng sad." Cole was taken aback and immediately said, "Even if Gu will be sad, it will only be for a short while. She will forget about Leah in no time and by then you." Elvis interrupted Cole's words and said, "Even if it's just a blink of an eye, I don't want to upset Xiao Meng. If you don't have any other conditions, then there's no need to talk about this deal. Compared to the wolf cubs who will put Xiao Meng in danger, Leah who can protect her is much more important to me." Seeing that Cole did not speak anymore, Elvis turned to leave. If it wasn't for the fact that he couldn't kill Cole, why would he waste his breath on him? Elvis had barely taken 2 steps when Cole's voice rang behind him. "What if I tell you that the kidnapping of the little wolves and Gu was all planned by Leah?" Elvis stood still, turned around and looked at Cole coldly without saying a word. Cole continued, "The original plan was to use this kidnapping to get rid of you. Leah would then become Gu's first partner and I would become Gu's beast pet. This would strengthen the bond between Sauter and the messengers of the beast deity, showing the glory of the messengers tribe again. But your sudden advancement messed up our original plan, so Leah betrayed our agreement at the last minute. Even so, do you still want to keep him?" Chapter 5:17. Cole looked straight into Elvis's eyes and said, "What I said is the truth." Elvis sneered and said, "If Leah wanted to be the first partner, he would have mated with Xiao Meng before winter last year. There's no need to go through so much trouble. And, to recreate Sauter's glory. What do you think Sauter is in Lee's eyes?" Elvis didn't want to waste any more time talking to Cole, so he stepped on his chest and leaned forward. With a sharp gaze, he said, "I didn't kill you because Xiao Meng couldn't bear to part with those little brats, and also because you have a score to settle with Leah, so I left you to him. But I've always had a bad temper, so I hope you won't waste my time like you did today again. Or else, as a senior of stray beasts, I will properly tell you why stray beasts are feared, hated, and yet not dared to provoke them." With that, Elvis kicked Cole away and turned to leave. He did not give Cole any chance to say anything else. When he returned to the stone house, Gu Mengmeng was already asleep. Leah sat outside the stone house, obviously waiting for Elvis. Seeing that he had returned, he shifted to the side to make some space for Elvis. "Did he tell you where the little wolves are?" Leah asked. Elvis shook his head and didn't say a word. Leah smiled helplessly and said, "I guess he won't say either. Looking for you is most likely to sow discord." Elvis nodded and said, "You still want me to go if you know?" "What a waste of time." Leah shrugged and said helplessly, "Meng Meng wants to know where the little wolves are so badly. Even if there's only a sliver of hope, I still hope that you can pry open his mouth." Elvis glanced sideways at Leah and asked, "Aren't you afraid that I will be cheated by him?" But Leah smiled like a flower and shook his head with his shoulders shaking, saying, "Even if you believe everything he says, you won't kill me. As long as I don't die and can stay by Meng Meng's side, I don't mind paying any price." Elvis raised his brows and said, "How do you know that I definitely won't kill you?" Leah nodded and said with certainty, "Meng Meng likes me a little now. She will definitely be sad if you kill me. Don't you not know how to do things that will make her sad?" Elvis laughed as well. "You are just being pampered and arrogant." Leah swayed his large tail and said, "Thanks for the compliment." Elvis turned around to look at Gu Meng Meng, who was sleeping soundly in the room. She had just turned around and her little face was facing the direction of the door. Elvis's gaze turned gentle and he asked softly, looking at the situation today, "I don't think Cole will tell us the whereabouts of the little wolves. What do you plan to do next?" Lee's gaze was cold as he stared at the moonlight. "An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Back then, he falsely accused me of having an affair with my father's concubine and banished me from the tribe, turning me into a street rat that everyone hated. Today, I will give him the same punishment for the same crime." Elvis looked at Leah, asking, "What do you need me to do?" Leah smiled faintly and turned his gaze towards the house. Looking at that light sleeping face, he chuckled. "Protect Meng Meng well. Don't let anyone hurt her in front of us." Elvis nodded and did not reply. Chapter 5:18. On the second day, something big happened in Sauder. Gu Meng Meng used the name of the messenger of the beast deity to gather all the elders, nobles and tribesmen of Sauder. She dressed up and stood on the altar, reciting the lyrics of the English version of A Little Apple with a pious face, love plant. Sauder is like Odio, father is like Tay, wife is like Tay. With the first breakthrough, Gu Mingming's sense of shame had been pulled down to a very low level. She could recite this amusing passage in a serious manner without breaking out in laughter, and still maintain a damn solemn expression. Gu Meng Meng learned from the shamans, witch doctors, and those tricksters she had seen on television. She could also play the role of a charlatan with great depth. If it was a modern person, it would definitely be fake. But it was enough to fool those superstitious people who had never seen the world in the wild beast world. When Gu Meng Meng stomped her feet and glared at the crowd with her round and angry eyes, everyone felt a chill down their spine. Their hearts pounded like drums, beating furiously. Of course, they did not know that although part of the reason for their heart pounding was because of Gu Mingming's bluff, the bigger reason was because Elvis was secretly releasing his beast pressure. It was not a large amount and was released slowly in coordination with Gu Mingming's movements. So the orcs who were fully focused on Gu Meng Meng did not realize the real reason why they were feeling afraid. "My beast father said that you have been complaining in your hearts about why I abandoned you, right?" Gu Mingming's gaze swept across the elders below the stage. Seeing them lowering their heads guiltily and not daring to look at her, she guessed that her words had hit them on the spot. Guilty conscience. That was how it behaved. Gu Meng Meng walked forward slowly and spread her arms wide, showing a deity loving the world. She said with a pained tone, "When Sauder was assisting the previous messenger of the beast deity, how dedicated and loyal were you? But, all these years, what have you done? The sacred fire being extinguished was a warning, but you did not notice it and did not repent." The elders knelt on the ground. The matter of the sacred fire being extinguished was definitely a serious illness in their hearts. Although it had been extinguished for hundreds of years, it had always been a huge shadow shrouding Sauder. How afraid were they that the new messenger of the beast deity would pursue this matter? But he didn't expect that he still couldn't avoid it. Gu Meng Meng ignored them and continued, "Mighty Beast Father said that the Snow Fox clan has already forgotten the prophecy of God. They made a fool out of the divine authority, slandered the son of deity and chased the witch doctor out of the tribe to be humiliated. This is disrespect to God. In your eyes, do you still have the slightest bit of respect for Lord Beast God? Lord Messenger, please calm down, Lord Beast God is wise. Everyone in Sodor does not have the slightest bit of disrespect towards the beast deity. With the elders kneeling down, who else dared to stand up? The vixens of Sodor all knelt on the ground and kowtowed to Gu Meng Meng. Chapter 5:19. Great Messenger is wise. This was all Cole's idea. He was the one who wanted to use this method to welcome you back to Sodor. One of the elders spoke up and everyone immediately agreed with him. Gu Meng Meng gestured for them to stop, then looked at the elder who spoke up and said, Sodor doesn't even have a witch doctor. Welcome me back. How are they going to serve me? This. The elder wanted to say something but suddenly did not know what to say. Gu Meng Meng continued, the authority of the god is at its peak and the authority of the god is at its peak. You guys want to welcome me back to a tribe like this? The elders were dumbfounded by Gu Meng Meng's words. Gu Meng Meng turned around and sat on the chair in the middle of the deity altar. Elvis and Leah stood on her left and right, releasing their aura to the fullest. Instantly, everyone's knees turned to jelly and they knelt on the ground. Gu Meng Meng raised her head and said, the original leader of Sodor, Cole, went against the god's will for his own selfish reasons and framed the successor of the witch doctor, Leah. He used his power to suppress the tribe and forced the tribesmen to betray their conscience and help the villain do evil. He should be punished for his heinous crimes. However, the Son of God, Leah, had a clear spiritual root and was compassionate. He knelt on the ground and begged the beast deity for 3 days and 3 nights to plead for Cole. The beast deity was moved by his kindness and spared Cole's death sentence, banishing him from the tribe and making him a stray beast forever. On account that all of you were controlled by others and forced by Cole, not of your own free will, the beast deity was lenient and did not pursue the matter further. Are you guys convinced by this judgment? So, Cole was the only scapegoat. What else was there to be unconvinced about? The elders took the lead and thanked her profusely. Gu Meng Meng flung her hands and left. She would leave the rest to Leah. Returning to her own little stone house, Gu Meng Meng laid in Elvis's arms and said, damn it, pretending to be mysterious is really tiring. Elvis felt a little heartache and gently massaged Gu Meng Meng's shoulders. He said, luckily, Lee's name has been cleared and he is also the son of God that Sodor is most proud of. In the future, he can help you with such matters and you won't have to make an appearance every now and then. Gu Meng Meng smiled and shook her head. I really doubt the average intelligence of the Snow Fox tribe. Just what I said just now, no matter how you look at it, it is full of loopholes. How could they believe it? Elvis smiled. The words of the strong are the truth. You are the messenger of the beast deity, of course they would not dare to disobey you. Gu Meng Meng turned around and laid in Elvis's arms, saying, sometimes, I really feel that the previous messenger of the beast deity might be a multi-level marketer. How did she brainwash people to make the concept of messenger of the beast deity and beast deity so fantastical that people are still afraid of these two titles even after 1,000 years? No matter how you look at it, I'm just a weakling who doesn't even have the strength to truss a chicken. What are they afraid of? Elvis played with Gu Meng Meng's hair gently and said, you are not good at fighting and killing, but you have me and Leah. Gu Meng Meng nodded in realization. Ah, I understand now. I'm just an empty shell, they're really afraid of you and Leah. No. Elvis kissed Gu Meng Meng's forehead and said, they're afraid of your divine authority and the mighty beast deity behind you. Gu Meng Meng was a little dejected. She lowered her head and said, what bullsh** t divine authority. If that divine authority was really so useful, I would have directly saved my son. Why would I need to go through so much trouble? Chapter 5:20. Leah regaining control of the deity's authority was progressing more smoothly than expected. Out of the original 3 5th-level beasts in solder, 2 were dead and 1 was crippled. Under Elvis's absolute suppression, no one dared to show any signs of dissatisfaction. And with 1,000 years of inheritance, they firmly believed that they were the followers of the messenger of the beast deity. Now that the messenger had descended, she wanted Leah to be in charge, so Leah should be in charge. She said Cole deserved to die, so Cole deserved to die. Gu Mingming's words were the absolute truth in solder. They only needed to obey, there was no need to discuss or question. With Elvis's military protection and Gu Mingming's support of the deity's authority, Leah handled the affairs of the tribe like a fish in water. The first thing he did after regaining control was to announce that he would lead the Snow Fox tribe back under the command of the messenger of the beast deity. From then on, there would be no more solder tribe, only the followers of the messenger of the beast deity. The messenger was in Saint Nazaire and the Snow Fox tribe was in Saint Nazaire. If the messenger went to another tribe, they would also follow her to that tribe. Not loyal to the tribe, only loyal to the messenger. This concept was equivalent to announcing that Saint Nazaire had annexed solder, but the elders were surprisingly supportive. Perhaps to them, it did not matter if it was Saint Nazaire or solder, as long as it was the messenger tribe. Even if they changed their names, they would still be the elders under the messenger and were highly respected. The second thing was to exile Cole. As the saying goes, everyone kicks a wall when it's down. This was probably the situation. Those who used to follow Cole's lead could not be seen anymore. On the day of Cole's exile, only Leah came to send him off. Leah held Cole's favorite food in his hands and passed it to Cole. Times change, it's just the wheel of fortune. You banished me once and I banished you once. This way, we're even. Cole took the food from Lee's hands. He was neither agitated nor resentful. He ate it elegantly and did not look like an exiled person at all. Swallowing the food in his mouth calmly, Cole said, "Aren't you going to kill me to prevent future troubles? Aren't you afraid that I will make a comeback and end up like you today?" Leah smiled faintly. Afraid? I wasn't even afraid of you when you were high and mighty. Now, you're just a crippled beast that's been banished, yet you want me to be afraid of you. Cole nodded and said, "You don't have to say such beautiful words. I know you are not killing me because you want to find the whereabouts of those wolf pups from me. I'm not afraid to tell you directly, those 3 little wolf cubs, I've already asked that snake beast to bring them to the Snake King Valley. Chishuan's antidote is with the 3 wolf cubs. If you want it, ask Gu to look for me at the Snake King Valley. If you're worried, you can accompany her here. But, don't forget, that Lord in the Snake King Valley isn't a gentleman like me. He only invited Gu, the rest will be treated as trespassers." Lee's face remained calm and his gaze was calm as he said, "I knew it, why would the snake tribe not follow their own beast king and instead come to solder to tangle with you?" So it turns out that they had already reached an agreement with the Snake King Valley. Cole nodded, acknowledging Lee's words. After all, that great lord and the great messenger whom solder is loyal to have a close relationship. Since their goals are the same, there's naturally no reason for them to not cooperate. Chapter 521. Cole opened his arms wide and put on a "you can do whatever you want" pose. His smile was a little provocative as he lifted his chin and said, "If you kill me, who will bring you to the Snake King Valley? It doesn't matter if those few wolf pups die, you can kill me now. With the son of the messenger of the beast deity accompanying me, I can die in glory." Leah didn't say anything and just gestured for Cole to leave, implying that he was letting Cole leave. Cole shook the beast skin on his body and smiled at Leah, saying, "You have imitated me for so many years and now it seems like you have some charm. But a fake is still a fake. The next time we meet, it will not be like this." Leah didn't say anything and just smiled faintly. There was some disdain and indifference in his smile as well as some nonchalance. Cole didn't say anything else and just turned to leave. Compared to the time when he chased Leah away, the current Cole was much more dignified. But his hatred and indignation were much stronger than Lee's back then. On what basis? These 3 words almost made Cole's eyes drip blood. The moment he turned around, Cole's expression turned sinister and terrifying. But Leah, who was behind him, still had a calm expression. Glancing disdainfully at the sky, a black figure brought Cole away from the shade of the trees. Leah turned around and walked back to Solder. Oh, no, there was no more Solder in this world. This was now Saint Nazir's territory. Using Gu Mingming's words, it was called a division. The original elders had a secret room specially for discussing work. Gu Mengmeng used burnt wood ashes to write the words meeting room on it. Leah used his claws to carve out the 3 words bit by bit until it was hollow. Then, he used beast skin to tie the 2 sides and hung it above the door of the secret room. From then on, this secret room had a sacred name, meeting room. Leah fetched Elvis and Gu Mengmeng and was about to head to the meeting room to discuss about the wolf pups when he met Sandy and Colin along the way. Both of them looked travel-worn, as though they had just arrived at Solder and did not have the time to rest before coming to look for him. Gu Mengmeng was always in a good mood when she saw Sandy. She pulled Sandy's little hand and was about to let out her grievances over the past few days when she saw Colin kneeling down at Gu Mingming's feet with a loud thud. He said with a face full of grief and indignation, "Great messenger, please punish me." Gu Mengmeng was shocked and wanted to ask what had happened. Sandy wiped her tears and held on to Gu Mingming's hand, sobbing, "Gu Mengmeng, can you not kill Colin? I beg you. It's all my fault. It's all my fault. If you want to blame someone, blame me. Don't kill Colin, okay?" Gu Mengmeng looked at Sandy in confusion and then at Colin. She waved her hands and said, "Can anyone tell me what happened first? Are you 2 possessed?" Colin moved 2 steps forward and said, "It's not Sandy's fault, it's my fault. As the messenger's guard, I only cared about protecting my own female when you were in danger and did not fulfill my duty as a guard. When everyone was fighting a bloody battle, I selfishly only cared about protecting my own female and did not fight for you. As a guard, I am, that, as a member of Saint Nazir, I am, anyway, I am guilty." Sandy shook her head and held on to Gu Mingming's hand, saying, "No, you can't blame Colin. I was too afraid at that time, so I grabbed onto him and did not let him go to join the battle. I insisted on keeping him by my side. It's all my fault, I am a burden to Colin. If you want to punish someone, punish me. Can you spare Colin? I beg you, don't kill him. Aside from the topic, a foolish person should study more. Look, he can't even come up with a proper sentence to apologize." Chapter 522. Gu Mengmeng smiled as she helped Colin up. She hugged Sandy and patted her back lightly before pushing Sandy back into Colin's arms. "Leave 2 of the strongest males behind to protect every female. The rest of the tribesmen will participate in the frontal assault. Isn't this Lee's battle plan? Colin and Bode are the strongest in your family. It's not wrong for them to stay behind to protect you. Why should I kill Colin?" Colin said in a simple and honest voice, "Because I'm the emissary's protector, the emissary's shield. When the messenger is in danger, I should be the first to stand in front of her." "But I..." Gu Mengmeng patted Colin's shoulder with a smile. "I am indeed the messenger of the beast deity. But everyone does not have the obligation to risk their lives for me. Emotionally, you protected my most important friend. Logically, you were just following the orders of your superior. So, you did not do anything wrong. But..." Colin could not win against Gu Mengmeng in an argument. But he knew in his heart that he was in the wrong in this matter. Elvis wrapped his arms around Gu Mingming's waist gently and pulled her into his arms. He looked at Colin with disdain. Xiao Meng said that she will not punish you. But after this incident, it has been proven that you are not suitable to be the messenger's guard. From now on, you will be stripped of all your rights and responsibilities. Do you have any objections? Colin lowered his head. I have no objections. Elvis nodded. He carried Gu Mengmeng up. Oritin will take over your position. If there's nothing else, you guys can go back. Gu Mengmeng. Sandy stared at Gu Mengmeng with her teary eyes. She felt very guilty. When Gu Mengmeng was in danger and trouble, she only cared about the safety of her own males. She clearly knew what Gu Mengmeng had been through. But when she stood in front of her, she did not even show a single word of concern. She only cared about helping Colin beg for mercy. She was indeed not a good friend. Gu Mengmeng returned a smile. She signaled to Sandy that it would be fine. But Sandy's eyes were still red from crying. She cried uncontrollably in Colin's arms. Elvis and Leah carried Gu Mengmeng to the meeting room. Leah repeated Cole's words to Gu Mengmeng without missing a single word. Elvis remained silent for a moment. Leah, stay here and take care of Xiao Meng. I will go to the Snake King Valley to save the little wolf. Leah shook his head and said, the monster in the Snake King Valley is not at Cole's level. Not to mention that you have just stepped into 5th level, even someone at the peak of 5th level like Cole would not be able to withstand a single blow from him. You have no chance of winning if you go alone. Let Oritin and Barit stay here to take care of Meng Meng. I'll go with you to the Snake King Valley. Maybe we have a 30% chance of winning. Gu Mengmeng knocked on the table and said, if I didn't appear, the two of you would have been killed before you even had the chance to see Cole. I don't want you to die for nothing. Elvis frowned and looked at Gu Mengmeng. Xiao Meng, you promise not to make me worry anymore. Gu Mengmeng pulled Elvis's hand and said, yeah, so this time I will drag you along with me on this adventure. Leah said, Mengmeng, don't fool around. Gu Mengmeng sat in Elvis's arms and turned to look at Leah, saying, if that peerless master in the Snake King Valley is really as unfathomable as you guys said, then no matter where I hide, it's only a matter of time before he finds me. Instead of waiting passively for danger to descend on us, why not take the initiative to attack first and gain the upper hand? Aside from the topic, this Snake King is a rather important person. Yeah, actually I quite like him, but I don't like snakes. If we ignore his attributes, this character is still not bad. Babes who are afraid of snakes don't worry, he will not always appear in the novel. The Snake King Valley, yeah, it's probably just a small instance and you can leave after finishing it. Don't be afraid, don't be afraid. I heard that babes are starting to dislike reading the author's words. Because once the author's words appear, it means that today's update has ended. Heh heh heh, yes, that's right, the person saying goodbye is me again. Chapter 523. Leah stared at Gu Mengmeng quietly for a long time before finally giving up. He sighed and said, give me 3 days, I will settle everything here and then go with you. Gu Mengmeng shook her head and placed her little hand on the back of Lee's hand gently. She said, if I really meet with any mishaps, you have to leave someone outside to save me. Leah clenched his teeth and could no longer maintain his forced smile. His gaze was like ice shards as he asked word by word, you want to abandon me? Gu Mengmeng chuckled and caressed Lee's face gently. She said, no, I just want you to guard a place for me to return to. Leave a way out for me. I will be back, I definitely will. Leah held on to Gu Mengmeng's hand tightly. This was the first time he lost his sense of propriety. He did not care that her wrist was red from his strength and only said, I don't agree. I won't allow you to leave me alone. Elvis held on to Lee's hand and said, calm down, Xiao Meng will get hurt. But Leah refused to let go. He glanced sideways at Elvis and said, "How can I calm down? Why don't we swap places? I will accompany Xiao Meng to the Snake King Valley while you guard here. Let me see how you can calm down." Gu Mengmeng patted Elvis's chest and signaled him not to quarrel with Leah. Then, she jumped down from Elvis's arms and took the initiative to hug Leah. She pressed the side of her face against Lee's chest. One of her hands was held tightly by Leah while the other was wrapped around Lee's waist. Gu Mengmeng said softly, "Hede and his brothers are my flesh and blood. I can't ignore them no matter what. Now that the Snake King is obviously targeting me, even if I don't go, he will not let me off. Leah, I promise you, no matter what, I will try my best to protect myself and will not leave you alone. Don't forget, I am the messenger of the Beast Deity, the biological daughter of the Beast Deity. The mighty Beast Deity will definitely protect me. I won't stop you if you want to save the little wolves, but you must bring me along." Leah hugged Gu Mengmeng tightly and did not take a single step back. Gu Mengmeng said, "Saint Nazir and Sauter just went through a huge battle. Now, the people's morale is low and both sides are in a state of panic. Other than you, no one can control the situation. I promise you, I will definitely come back in 3 months. Just wait for me for 3 months, okay?" Leah shook his head and furrowed his brows. He used a voice that could tear apart the depths of one's soul to play out a bone-piercing uneasiness. "Without you, I can't even live for a moment. 3 months. How could he possibly wait? So what if Saint Nazir was destroyed? So what if Sauter was gone? Besides you, there's nothing I can't bear to part with." Elvis stood behind Gu Mengmeng and said slowly, "Xiao Meng, this time I support Leah." Chapter 524. Gu Mengmeng had originally thought that since she did not mate with Leah, she should not involve Leah in such a dangerous situation. If anything happened to her in the Snake King Valley, then Leah could start a new life after grieving for a period of time. But looking at how the two of them were so compatible, she was afraid that if she did not bring Leah along, not to mention the Snake King Valley, she would not even be able to leave this meeting room. Sighing helplessly, Gu Mengmeng finally nodded and said, "All right, let's go together." Leah then heaved a sigh of relief and bit Gu Mengmeng's lips as a punishment, which eventually turned into a deep kiss. Only when she was almost suffocating did Leah release her reluctantly. Wiping away the saliva on her lips, Lee's long and affectionate eyes held an indescribable gentleness. "Don't ever ask me to stay behind again, understand?" Gu Mengmeng nodded and did not struggle anymore. As Gu Mengmeng was too worried about the children, she could not wait for 3 more days. So the next morning, Gu Mengmeng handed Qi Xian over to Sandy to take care of. Leah instructed Dylan to check on Qishuan's condition at Sandy's house every day and try his best to stabilize the poison. Then, the 3 of them left the tribe and headed towards the Snake King Valley according to the markings left behind by the Eagle Owl tribe. Elvis and Leah took turns to piggyback Gu Mengmeng as they hurried. Gu Mengmeng knew that if she asked herself to walk, it would only slow down the overall speed. So although her heart ached, she remained silent and only forced Elvis and Leah to rest for 1 night every 3 days. On the 10th day, they arrived at the entrance of a valley. Beside the entrance, leaning against the tree trunk, waiting for them, was Ian. Cole never came out after he entered this place. We tried to follow him in, but we couldn't find any trace of him, so the entrance should be nearby. Ian summarized briefly. Gu Mengmeng nodded and said, "All right, it's been hard on you. Go back and rest, we will settle the rest ourselves." Ian raised his brows and his sickly face revealed some displeasure. "Settle ourselves? Ha, I'm afraid that before you can even find the entrance, you'll be eaten by the snake beasts everywhere." Gu Mengmeng was taken aback and immediately lowered her head to take a closer look. Indeed, she found traces of a snake in the bushes. She was terrified and instinctively hid in Elvis's arms. Ian said, "Ha, if it wasn't for you, Elvis, a 5th-level beast, could barely explore this place." Now, even if the two of them were tied together, they wouldn't be able to protect you from so many snake beasts. You're still thinking of doing what you want. TSK, a burden. Gu Meng Meng was furious, but she could not retort. He could only glare and say, "Then tell me, what should we do?" Ian shook his wings and said, "I'll bring you along to show off and fly." Gu Mingming's eyes lit up. She patted Ian's shoulder and said, "Not bad, big brother. Anyone with wings is an angel." Ian coldly snorted, then opened his chest and said, "Hold on tight, otherwise I won't be responsible if you fall to your death." Chapter 525. Ian did not reply Gu Meng Meng, he just exchanged glances with Leah and Elvis, before flapping his wings and flying away against the wind. Elvis released his beast pressure to prevent the snake beasts from getting close, while Leah used his advantage to search for every possible entrance. Ian was protecting Gu Meng Meng in the air, while using God's view to provide information to Leah and Elvis. The three males cooperated well. It should have been a good start. But, Gu Mingming's body shook, then she felt herself falling into a state of weightlessness. Looking up, she saw Ian's face turning green. His body could not move at all, as if his acupoints had been sealed. His pupils were starting to lose focus, and he used his last bit of rationality to retract his wings, using his body to protect Gu Meng Meng. Gu Meng Meng did not even have the time to scream before she lost consciousness. Cold. Something lightly brushed past Gu Mingming's cheek. Frowning, Gu Meng Meng forced her dry eyes open. He wanted to sit up, but he found that he couldn't control his body. Not to mention sitting, he couldn't even lift a finger. The only thing she could control were her eyelids and eyeballs. Awake? A cold and emotionless voice rang above Gu Mingming's head. Gu Meng Meng looked up with a posture that seemed like she was rolling her eyes. She could only see a naked upper body. Judging from the flatness of the chest, it should be a male. But this face was bewitching. She was definitely a cold and aloof elder sister. Leo was also very handsome, like a demon or a deity, but it would not cause people to doubt his gender. But this guy in front of her was like a demon or Rakshasa that crawled out from the 18th level of hell. His demonic aura was so strong that it was mesmerizing. He was just looking at Gu Meng Meng without any expression, but Gu Meng Meng felt as if she had fallen into a cave and was watching Chun Sanyang perform a striptease. Her heart could not help but beat wildly, and Gu Meng Meng even forgot how to breathe. Nice to look at. The evildoer was neither angry nor happy. He asked in an indifferent and calm tone. Gu Meng Meng was stunned for a moment, before realizing that it was impolite to stare at someone like that, so she quickly retracted her gaze and tried to cough. Realizing that she could still speak, she looked down at the tip of her nose and asked, "May I know, you are?" That demon raised his eyebrows and slid his body to the bottom of Gu Mingming's face. His cold fingers lifted Gu Mingming's chin lightly, and with an unhappy expression, he said, "Why aren't you looking at me anymore?" Gu Meng Meng did not hear clearly what the demon said, she just realized that she was lying in the tail of a giant snake. Her mind went blank and without thinking, she roared out loud out of reflex, "Aw!" That demon frowned and pushed Gu Mingming's chin with his fingers, forcefully interrupting Gu Mingming's shocking biological reaction. He pinched Gu Mingming's cheeks and asked, "Are you afraid of me?" Gu Mingming's. And Meng Mingming's expression, and said. Gu's S, Mingming's expression. Gu's S, and, King, and, Meng S, Meng. Chapter 526. Answer my question or I will eat you up. The demon moved closer to Gu Meng and opened his mouth, revealing two poisonous fangs. Gu Meng was even more afraid. Damn, a human's mouth could not open so wide. Great, 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 great king, please spare my life. Gu Meng Meng stuttered. The demon shut his mouth and looked at Gu Meng Meng with interest. His cold fingers brushed past her face and he muttered to himself, not as pretty as her, but still interesting. Gu Meng Meng completely did not understand what the demon was saying and just looked at him with a guarded and frightened expression. The demon asked, "You are Gu Meng Meng?" Gu Meng Meng wanted to nod but realized that her neck could not move. Not daring to test the demon's patience, she just replied with a "yeah" while trembling. The demon said, "Help me think of a nickname, one that is different from everyone else." Gu Meng Meng blinked her eyes at the demon and said, "Great, great, great king, please spare my life." The demon's face turned cold and he said, "You want me to call you, Great King, please spare my life?" Gu Meng Meng, huh? The demon released his hand and his pupils turned vertical in front of Gu Meng Meng. He said, "I will only count to 3. If you can't think of anything, I will eat you up." Gu Meng Meng was dumbfounded and completely did not know what was going on. Although females were extremely precious in the beast world, she did not doubt that this fellow would really swallow her up after counting to 3. Hence, Gu Meng Meng's brain activated a magical mode. Her brain worked rapidly in a muddled state and following the demon's countdown, she activated her strongest brain mode. Demon, 1. Gu Meng Meng, Demon, 3. Gu Meng Meng, 2 Meng. The demon nodded and repeated, 2 Meng. Gu Meng Meng almost bit off her tongue. She originally wanted to ask, "Where's 2?" But in the end, she called out, 2 Meng, instead. But seeing that the demon seemed to be satisfied with this form of address, Gu Meng Meng secretly heaved a sigh of relief. She felt as if she had escaped from a great disaster by accident. Demon, 2 Meng. Gu Meng Meng answered bitterly, The demon smiled faintly, as if he felt that it was quite fun. Then, he called out again, 2 Meng. Gu Meng Meng, This game repeated for at least 2 hours and Gu Meng Meng had the misconception that she was a pet dog being trained to remember her name. 2 hours later, the evildoer seemed to have finally answered the question, "Do you dare to answer when I call you?" Hence, he moved his body and used his tail to drag Gu Meng Meng out. Only then did Gu Meng Meng slowly recover from her fear and started to size up her surroundings. In the dark and damp cave, there was a faint sound of water dripping. There was no wind and the air was humid and stuffy. If she had not inherited Elvis's night vision ability, she would have been completely blind here. There were many water droplet-shaped stalactites on the ceiling of the cave. They were round and glossy. The uncanny workmanship of nature formed a majestic and awe-inspiring scene. The sudden blinding light made Gu Meng Meng squint her eyes in discomfort. She wanted to raise her hand to block it, but unfortunately, she could not even move a finger. The demon swam for a long time before stopping by a lake. Looking at Gu Meng Meng, he was a little impatient but still picked up a tree branch to start a fire. Chapter 527. After the fire rose, the demon frowned and took 2 steps back in disdain. He then looked at Gu Meng Meng and said, "I hate fire, you roast it yourself." Gu Meng Meng was on the verge of tears. "Mighty King. I can't move." The demon looked at Gu Meng Meng with the word trash written clearly in its eyes, but it still aimed the tip of its snake tail at Gu Meng Meng's mouth. Gu Meng Meng instinctively clenched her teeth and shut her mouth, but the demon suddenly moved its face closer and opened its mouth wide, frightening Gu Meng Meng so much that she screamed loudly. At that moment, the snake tail directly entered Gu Meng Meng's mouth. Gu Meng Meng felt something pricking her tongue. Then, there was a warm feeling spreading throughout her body, as if her frozen blood was starting to flow again. She gradually regained control of her body, from being able to curl her fingers to barely being able to sit up straight. Gu Meng Meng gradually started to feel a sense of security. "If I find out that you're trying to escape, I'll eat your partner first, then your pet," and then I'll catch you." The demon's voice was flat without any fluctuation, but Gu Meng Meng was so scared that she broke out in cold sweat. Twisting her neck stiffly, she forced herself to face this scary demon. She plucked up her courage and asked, "How are the 3 males that were with me?" The demon's eyes turned cold. He clearly did not like Gu Meng Meng mentioning other people in front of him, and had completely forgotten that he was the one who mentioned it first. Gu Meng Meng continued cautiously, "We don't have any ill intentions, they are just accompanying me to find my son." The evildoer said coldly, "I know." Gu Meng Meng tilted her head. "You know." The evildoer snorted coldly and said, "Yes." Gu Meng Meng was clearly so scared that she wanted to escape, but she still gritted her teeth and moved closer to the demon, asking, "How are they now?" The demon was displeased and said, "If you ask again, I'll eat them all." Gu Meng Meng waved her hands and said, "I won't ask anymore, I won't ask anymore. Please don't be angry, Your Majesty." The demon used his chin to point at the pile of animal carcasses at the side and said, "Roast them. Eat them." Gu Meng Meng nodded, not daring to retort. Her husband and son were obviously in the hands of others. How could she dare to disobey? But when she turned around, Gu Meng Meng was dumbfounded. She was just a weak woman without the strength to even truss a chicken. Roasting a rhinoceros with her bare hands was something she couldn't do. The demon was behind Gu Meng Meng, and seeing that she was not moving, he urged, "Roast it quickly." Gu Meng Meng turned around and said softly, "I can't." The evildoer made a tisk sound. Then, with a face full of reluctance, it used its tail to roll up a huge beast and used a thick branch to roast it over the fire. Gu Meng Meng watched as the fur curled up and turned black, giving off a pungent and unpleasant smell. Her stomach churned, but she did not dare to vomit. She could only pray continuously in her heart, "Damn, this thing that was scarier than Elvis's cooking, please don't let me eat it." However, the beast deity clearly bore a grudge against Gu Meng Meng for pretending to be his daughter. The demon placed something 10 times bigger in front of Gu Meng Meng and said, "Eat." Gu Meng Meng asked in a trembling voice, "Can I not eat it?" The demon frowned and asked coldly, "You dislike me?" Chapter 528. After 2 mouthfuls of roasted meat, Gu Meng Meng fainted once again. The moment her vision turned black, she actually smiled, so damn blissful. This was simply a release. Tu Meng. Tu Meng. The demon's unhappy voice rang beside Gu Meng Meng's ears, but she was secretly happy like a question. "I'm going to faint. Let's see what else you can do to me." Ha 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 ha. Time seemed to have stopped. Gu Meng Meng did not know how long she had fainted, but when she woke up from the urge to pee, the sky was already filled with stars. "Awake?" A cold voice rang above her head. This familiar feeling sent a chill down Gu Meng Meng's back, but she did not have the courage to turn back. If she were to see that gigantic snake that was as thick as a towering ancient tree, Gu Meng Meng had no doubt that she would pee on the spot. Say, "Sir, I want to go to the toilet, can I?" The demon responded with a cold, "Yeah," then added, "Finish it within 10 steps, if you go too far, I'll eat you up." Sigh. Gu Meng Meng put on a long face and tried her best to take the biggest stride. She successfully went behind a big tree on her 10th step and quickly finished her physiological needs, before heaving a sigh of relief and standing up slowly. Lying on the tree trunk, Gu Meng Meng peeked her little head out secretly. Without a terrifyingly thick snake tail, there was only a handsome young man standing under the moonlight. His gaze was filled with evilness as he raised his slender finger and pointed at Gu Meng Meng. Then, he flipped his palm upwards and hooked his finger. Gu Meng Meng shrunk her neck and walked out from behind the tree timidly. She took a closer look and confirmed that this fellow was indeed that demon. But after transforming into a human, he did not look as scary as when he was in his half-orc state. His body was well-proportioned and slender, unlike Elvis's strong and muscular body, nor Lee's well-proportioned body. It was a type of muscle line that was in between Elvis and Leah. All the muscle fibers grew vertically, making his entire person look even more chiseled and beautiful. Strength and femininity were perfectly combined on his body, and the whiteness of his skin had reached a stage that made one's hair stand on end. Gu Mengmeng had the urge to poke him, because she felt that his skin was so good that a little force could poke a hole. The demon looked at Gu Mengmeng coldly and accepted her stare calmly. After a long while, he finally spoke, "You're not afraid of me anymore." Gu Mengmeng was taken aback. She immediately lowered her head and maintained the posture of a little eunuch, saying, I'm scared, Your Majesty, you are wise and mighty, you have unified the world." The evildoer snorted coldly and stretched out his hand, palm facing upwards. Gu Mengmeng looked at the demon's hand in confusion, then raised her head to look at his eyes. The word, dumbfounded, was clearly written all over her face. The demon said impatiently, "Hand." Gu Mengmeng responded with an "oh," then, like a dog being taught how to shake hands by its owner, she clenched her fists and placed them on the demon's palm. She was just short of sticking out her tongue and barking, "Woof woof woof." The demon's hand was long and huge. With his fingers slightly bent, he completely wrapped Gu Mengmeng's little hand in his own. The corners of his lips curled up slightly, as though he found it miraculous. Then, he murmured softly, "So it really is hot, what?" Gu Mengmeng tilted her head and asked. The demon did not reply and just pulled Gu Mengmeng deeper into the forest. Chapter 529. The demon brought Gu Mengmeng to the side of a deep pool, then used his chin to point at the hundreds of beasts in the pool, asking, "Which one do you like?" Gu Mengmeng stretched her neck to look down. "Did I go to the wild zoo?" This was simply a small-scale food chain, a microscopic animal world. Gu Mengmeng looked at the demon in surprise, asking, "Are you playing happy farming?" The demon looked at the deep pool, then back at Gu Mengmeng, saying, "Don't you all store food like this?" Gu Mengmeng was stunned for a moment, then asked back, "You know how to breed and breed?" The demon frowned impatiently, saying, "Choose quickly, which one do you want to eat?" Although Gu Mengmeng had not eaten for a day, but thinking about this man's dark cooking skills that were even higher than Elvis's, she shook her head firmly for the sake of her own life, saying, "My stomach is not feeling well today, I don't want to eat meat. I'll just eat some fruits." The demon twitched his mouth, saying, "Troublesome." As he said that, he still held Gu Mengmeng's hand, turning around to walk back. When they accidentally passed by a certain tree, they looked up. The demon said coldly, "Hindrance." Then, he kicked it nonchalantly, and then, the tree fell. Gu Mengmeng stared dumbfoundedly at the huge tree that needed at least 5 to 6 people to hug was kicked over just like that. She immediately decided not to provoke this man even if she was beaten to death. The demon walked to the top of the tree nonchalantly, pointing at the fruits hanging on the branches, saying, "Eat." Gu Mengmeng then understood that this man was acting to find food for her. Gu Mengmeng smiled obsequiously, saying, "Thank you, mighty king." With that, she was prepared to sit on the tree branch obediently to pick a few fruits to eat, but before she could take a step, she was pulled back again. Turning around, she met the demon's unhappy eyes, faking a smile, saying, "Mighty king." The demon tightened his grip, saying, "Don't run away, I'll eat you." Gu Mengmeng shook her head, saying, No, I don't dare to run away. I'm just going to eat a few fruits." The demon did not say a word. He held Gu Mengmeng's little hand and walked to a tree branch. He bent his legs and sat down, then looked sideways at Gu Mengmeng. Gu Mengmeng's hand was being held by the demon and it was impossible for her to sit further away. Hence, just when she wanted to sit beside him, the demon pulled Gu Mengmeng into his arms. He was still expressionless as he said, "My body is more comfortable." Gu Mengmeng smiled bitterly. Damn it, I'm feeling uncomfortable. The demon raised his eyebrows. Do you have an opinion? Gu Mengmeng smiled apologetically and put on a cowardly look. No, completely not at all. Only then did the demon nod his head in satisfaction. He casually plucked a bunch of fruits that looked like grapes but were obviously not grapes and passed it to Gu Mengmeng. Eat. Gu Mengmeng took the fruit with one hand and wanted to wash it, but when she saw her hand being held by the demon, she gave up. Holding the root of the fruit in one hand, he raised his head and bit into it. The tip of his tongue tasted sweet, and the juice filled his entire mouth. Gu Mengmeng nodded instinctively. After swallowing, she exclaimed, so sweet. The demon looked at Gu Mengmeng from the corner of his eyes. He did not even know how gentle his expression was at that moment. How long had it been since he was interested in food? All the swallowing was out of instinct. But at that moment, he was very curious about the taste of the fruit that made her smile. Chapter 530. The corners of Gu Mengmeng's mouth twitched. Looking at the two shiny poisonous fangs, Gu Mengmeng's heart crumbled. Looking at the fruits in her hands, feed? Not feeding. That was a problem. Aww. The demon seemed to be getting impatient from waiting. He frowned slightly and his eyes clearly said, if you don't feed me, I will eat you. Gu Mengmeng immediately delivered the fruits to the demon's mouth. The demon imitated Gu Mengmeng and wanted to bite one into his mouth, but the moment his poisonous fangs touched the skin of the fruit broke immediately and juice splashed all over the demon's face. The demon frowned and wanted to get angry, but he saw Gu Mengmeng laugh out loud. His anger was mysteriously dispersed by her bright smile. The demon stuck out his tongue and gently licked the juice at the side of his lips. He frowned. What kind of disgusting taste was this? She actually liked this taste, so weird. But, although weird, it did not seem so annoying. Gu Mengmeng held back her laughter and raised the remaining half of the fruits, asking, Mighty King, do you still want to eat? The demon turned his head away coldly and said, you can eat it yourself. Gu Mengmeng did not know why. Maybe it was because the demon did not look that scary when he did not transform into a snake, or maybe it was because the way he looked when the juice splashed all over his face was too comical, or maybe it was because he did not do anything to hurt her even though he was awkward. Anyway, the guard in Gu Mengmeng's heart melted bit by bit. She felt that the demon was just not good at communicating with people. Although awkward and dangerous, he should not be too bad in nature. Or maybe, if she made him happy, he would return Elvis, Leah and her 3 sons to her. Thinking about this, a smile finally appeared on Gu Mengmeng's face. The demon kept looking at her from the corner of his eyes. Seeing her smile, the corners of his lips also rose unknowingly. Gu Mengmeng ate a lot of fruits but there were still a lot left on that tree. She wanted to pluck some of the fruit back to eat tomorrow, so as not to waste it, but the evildoer refused to let go of her hand. When she showed the slightest sign of struggling, he threatened with a cold face, if you dare to run, I'll eat you. Feeling helpless, Gu Mengmeng looked at the tree full of fruits with a pained expression. She was pulled back into the cave by the demon, who kept turning back every few steps. The demon found a flat spot to lie down, then pulled Gu Mengmeng into his arms. Gu Mengmeng did not dare to move. The demon frowned and said, do you want to sleep by yourself, or should I poison you till you faint? Gu Mengmeng immediately shut her eyes tightly, wishing she could fall asleep. However, the more she wanted to sleep, the more she couldn't. In the end, she secretly opened one eye and whispered, I've been unconscious for too long during the day. I can't sleep now. The demon frowned and said, no, sleep. Dejected, Gu Mengmeng stretched out her arm in front of the demon and said, then you can poison me till I faint, but please be gentle, I'm afraid of pain. The demon did not say a word and just used his other hand to press down Gu Mengmeng's arm. then slowly placed his face on Gu Mingming's neck. Gu Mingming thought to herself, what the heck? Vampire play. Chapter 531. The prickling pain at the base of her tongue brought Gu Mingming back to her senses, and she frowned because of the discomfort in her body. Her eyelids were so dry that they hurt. Gu Mingming felt that if she opened her eyes now, her retina might be glued to her eyelids. A cool wetness slowly swept past Gu Mingming's eyes, relieving her discomfort at the right time. She tried to squint her eyes. There was no light, but it did not obstruct her vision. Ooh! Gu Mingming moaned and rubbed her eyes. Looking at the side profile of the demon that was so close to her, her sleepiness disappeared instantly. She sat up straight as if she had stepped on an electric switch. You. The demon wiped the corners of his lips lightly and looked at Gu Mingming in disdain. You're awake. Gu Mingming touched her own eyes. They were wet. She felt a chill in her heart, thinking to herself, this lad looked so normal, but why did he have such a weird fetish? He liked to eat eye sockets. The demon held on to Gu Mingming's hand that was rubbing her eyes, then scrutinized Gu Mingming's face seriously. After a long while, he said calmly, ugly. Ugh! It was as if a large knife had stabbed into Gu Mingming's heart. Yes, she was not as beautiful as Elvis and the rest had described her to be. In the modern world, she would be average or even slightly below average. But there was no need to use the word ugly, right? Clenching her fists, Gu Mingming could only chuckle and say, you're the king, whatever you say is right. The demon took down a bunch of fruits from the stone table at the side and passed it to Gu Mingming, saying, eat. Gu Mingming took a look and saw that it was the kind she had eaten last night. She stretched her head out to take a look and saw the same fruits piled up like a hill on the stone table behind the demon. Blinking her eyes, Gu Mingming asked, you kicked the tree again. The demon shook his head and said, there's only one such fruit tree. Gu Mingming was petrified on the spot, as if she was struck by lightning. There should be a limit to squandering, right? Orphaned version. What the hell, an entire species was kicked to extinction just like that. The demon looked at Gu Mingming's weird expression and frowned unhappily. Yesterday, seeing how much she treasured them, he ordered the snake to pick all the fruits on the tree after she fell asleep. He had thought that she would be happy when she woke up, but why did she look like she was about to cry and seemed a little angry? TSK, even uglier. Gu Mingming carefully held the bunch of fruits in the demon's hands, plucked one and sent it into her mouth, tasting it carefully, no seeds. Hiss. Gu Mingming was a little confused. She plucked another one, it was still seedless. No wonder there was only one fruit tree. The probability of producing seeds was too low. The demon hooked Gu Mingming's chin, frowning with a cold expression. Smile. Ah. Gu Mingming was dumbfounded, not understanding the demon's words. The demon's face was cold as he ordered, smile. Gu Mingming grinned and forced herself to bare her teeth, smiling perfunctorily. The evildoer was impatient. He turned his head and said, so ugly. Gu Mingming raised her fist and really wanted to slap the back of this demon's head when he was not paying attention. But before her hand could touch his hair, the demon had already turned back to look at Gu Mingming coldly. Gu Mingming looked awkwardly at her hand that was frozen in midair. Then, she faked a smile and waved, saying, hi. The demon snorted and did not respond to Gu Mingming's greeting. He just looked at her coldly and asked, don't you like to eat this kind of fruit? I gave you so many, why are you still unhappy? Aside from the topic, although everyone hates me, but I still appeared, Chapter 532. Gu Mingming sighed and said, there's only one such fruit tree. If you kick it down, I will never be able to eat this fruit again after eating all these in front of me. Is that worth being happy about? The demon looked at her coldly and laughed in disdain. My Snake King Valley doesn't have many other things, but there are a lot of fruit trees. According to your eating speed, I'm afraid you won't be able to finish all of them until you die. Gu Meng Meng smiled awkwardly and said, then what if I don't like other fruits and only like this one? The demon raised his eyebrows and said, you dare. Gu Meng Meng really felt that she had never met someone so difficult to communicate with in her life. Seeing that he was so powerful, Gu Meng Meng could only say timidly, I don't dare. The demon's expression then softened and he gave another bunch of fruits to Gu Meng Meng and said, since you like it, eat them all. Gu Meng Meng shook her head and said, I can't finish all of these before they rot no matter what. Instead of letting them rot, why don't we leave some to eat and bury the rest? Maybe one of the fruits in this large batch will have seeds, and in that case, that fruit tree can grow again in a few years. The demon did not comment and just said coldly, natural selection, survival of the fittest. If it goes extinct, it will only prove that it is an eliminated species. No matter how hard you work, how many can you save? Gu Meng Meng smacked her lips and said, if I can save one then it's one. The demon did not say anything more and just held his head lazily, lying on his side and watching Gu Meng Meng eat seriously. When she really could not eat anymore, he then held Gu Meng Meng's hand and activated the conjoined twins mode. Gu Meng Meng sighed in resignation and followed behind the demon, asking, where are we going? The demon said, to bask in the sun. Gu Meng Meng felt like she was really being raised as a pet dog. He fed her at a fixed time and even brought her out for a walk after eating. Gu Meng Meng sat on a flat rock and accompanied the demon to bask in the sun. She lowered her head and stared at her own shadow in a daze. The demon held her little hand tightly and asked, what are you thinking about? Gu Meng Meng looked at the demon and the question she wanted to ask got stuck in her throat. She did not dare to ask easily. Seeing that Gu Meng Meng wanted to say something but stopped, the demon's face turned colder and he said, thinking about your 6 wild men? Gu Meng Meng choked and thought to herself, 6. Where did these 6 come from? She counted with her fingers, Elvis, Leah, Ian, Ah, and Hedda, Jialu and Kanwu. F***K, all 3 of them were biological sons. Elvis was the original official and legal couple, Ian was just a subordinate and there was no ambiguity at all. If they were to talk about wild men, Leah would be the only one. Gu Meng Meng was indignant, but she did not dare to rebuke the demon openly, so she could only mutter softly, he's not a wild man. The demon flipped himself over and rode on Gu Meng Meng's back, pressing the top of Gu Meng Meng's head with one hand and holding her chin with the other. He squinted his eyes and exuded a dangerous aura, saying, the males around you, other than me, are all wild men. Gu Meng Meng was indignant. You're not even my man, what right do you have to say that? The demon pinched Gu Meng Meng's face and covered her lips with his. He just stuck there and did not take any further action. After a long while, he slowly released her and said, now you are. Chapter 533. Displeased, the demon looked at Gu Meng Meng coldly and said, all right, then I will first kill that wolf on your collarbone, then that fox, then that bird, and finally swallow those 3 little ones in one mouthful. Gu Meng Meng looked at Gu Meng Meng coldly. Gu Meng Meng felt a chill down her spine and she slapped the ground and stood up, saying, if you dare to touch a single strand of hair on my hubby and children, I will fight you to the death. The demon sneered in disdain and said, even the 6 of them together can't beat me, and you, fight me to the death? Gu Meng Meng was so angry that tears kept flowing down her face. She bit her lower lip and said, let me tell you, unless I die. Otherwise, no one can even think of hurting my hubby and children. The demon's eyes turned cold and he said, are you threatening me? Gu Meng Meng was stunned and nodded, yes, I am threatening you, so what? The demon stood up and approached Gu Meng Meng step by step. He watched as she staggered backwards until she had nowhere to retreat and stared at him with widened eyes. He squinted his eyes dangerously and his pupils were vertical. Gu Meng Meng could even see his poisonous fangs secreting venom in his mouth, and it was obvious that he was angry. She made up her mind. So what if I die? She straightened her neck and puffed out her chest, saying, anyway, if anything happens to my hubby and children, I don't want to live anymore. Why don't you just kill me directly, so that I won't feel as if my heart is being fried? The demon's brows were tightly knitted together, as if he was hesitating whether he should just fulfill Gu Mingming's request and kill her. His long and cold fingers caressed Gu Mingming's jawbone. After a long time, he finally spoke, "Snake." Gu Mingming's hair stood on end and she stared at the demon for a long time without reacting. The demon glanced at Gu Mengmeng impatiently and said, "Stay in the Snake King Valley with me and I will spare your wild men from death." Gu Mengmeng glared angrily and said, "I already said they are not wild men." The demon laughed coldly and said, "Do you want me to be a mistress?" Gu Mengmeng said, "I have nothing to do with you, all right." The demon's face was gloomy and his gaze was cold as he said, "You slept with me and you still say you have nothing to do with me." Gu Mengmeng almost bit her own tongue. She suddenly felt that she could not explain herself. She scratched her head and said, "Who slept with you?" "At most, we're just kidnappers and hostages, okay? Give me back my husband and son, and we'll leave immediately." The evildoer's pupils became vertical lines. It was clear that he was extremely angry. He said darkly, "If you dare leave, I'll kill them right now." Gu Mengmeng sat on the ground shamelessly and kicked her legs, asking, "Then what exactly do you want?" The evildoer moved his jaw, as if he was suppressing the anger in his heart, and said, "You stay with me. I'll release your wild man and save your son." Gu Mengmeng looked up and asked, "You have a way to save my son?" The evildoer sneered and said, "Is there any poison in this world that I cannot cure?" Gu Mengmeng jumped up from the ground and grabbed the demon's arm tightly with both hands. "Then please save them. They are still children and have been unconscious for a long time. If we delay any longer..." The evildoer was not moved and only said coldly, "I'll save them, you stay." Gu Mengmeng bit her lower lip. Using her little life in exchange for the safety of her 4 sons was always worth it. Chapter 534. The demon stretched out his hand with his palm facing upwards, gesturing for Gu Mengmeng to hand over her little hand. Gu Mengmeng had no choice but to give herself a line of "Hold me up," before obediently placing her little hand into the demon's hand. The demon was finally satisfied and his pupils gradually returned to normal. He looked down at Gu Mengmeng and said, "Snake, my name." Gu Mengmeng replied, "Oh." Snake was displeased and said, "My name is not Oh." Gu Mengmeng put on a fake smile and said, "Great King Snake, I wish you happiness as boundless as the East Sea and longevity as everlasting as the South Mountain." The corners of Snake's lips curled up slightly and he said, "Say it again." Gu Mengmeng called out, "Snake," repeatedly for half an hour like a repeater before she finally managed to please this master. He happily pulled Gu Mengmeng into his arms and said, "I am a man of my word. I will bring you to meet your wild men and let you personally confirm that I let them go." You are willing to let me meet them?" Gu Mingming's eyes were as bright as a deer's and she could not suppress her smile. She looked as if she was glowing. Snake was dazzled by Gu Mingming's smile and felt a little jealous. He turned his face away coldly and said, "Stop smiling, you're so ugly." Gu Mengmeng covered her mouth with her hand and nodded in agreement, "I won't smile, I'm really ugly." Snake brought Gu Mengmeng around half of the valley and arrived at the entrance of a cave. Groups of colorful snakes crawled all over the ground outside the cave. Not to mention a place to land, even a mosquito would not be able to find a place to land. Gu Mengmeng had a natural fear of snakes and she had goosebumps all over her body. She instinctively hid in Snake's arms and this small action pleased Snake. He did not say a word and did not slow down. He just walked straight ahead. The groups of snakes automatically opened up a path for Snake to pass through. After he passed through, they closed up again and sealed off the path of retreat. After entering the cave, Snake placed Gu Meng Meng on the ground. But he refused to let go and just held on to her little hand tightly. Gu Meng Meng immediately saw Elvis and Leah, who were lying unconscious on the ground, as well as Ian, who had been thrown to the side and could not return to his human form. Hubby. Leah. Ian. Gu Meng Meng wanted to run over to check on their injuries, but Snake held her hand tightly and did not allow her to go over. Gu Meng Meng turned back to look at Snake. You promised to let them off. Snake raised his head and said, if you care too much about them, it will make me want to go back on my word. Gu Meng Meng froze on the spot and shook her head. I don't care at all. Don't go back on your word. Hurry up and save them. Snake's face darkened. He pulled Gu Meng Meng into his arms and locked her tightly. He pulled her little face towards his chest and then transformed his lower body into a snake beast. He raised the scales on his snake tail and made a small cut on Elvis, Leah and Ian's bodies. He then retracted his tail and transformed back to his human form before releasing Gu Meng Meng slightly. She could turn around to look at the three of them, but she was still unable to leave his arms. Elvis frowned and let out a soft sound. Gu Meng Meng was overjoyed and shouted, Hubby, hubby. Chapter 535. This weak call almost made Gu Meng Meng cry. She instinctively wanted to pounce into Elvis's arms but was hugged tightly by Snake. A cold and emotionless voice rang beside her ear. To me, it's easier to kill them than to save them. Gu Meng Meng did not dare to act rashly. She could only look at Elvis from a distance that was just a few steps away but could not be crossed. Hubby, how are you feeling now? Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere? Elvis forced himself to sit up and shook his head, trying to regain his composure as soon as possible. After panting heavily, Elvis then realized that Gu Meng Meng was in the arms of another stranger. Her little face was full of tears and it made one's heart ache. Elvis bared his teeth. He wanted to stand up and attack Snake to snatch Gu Meng Meng back. But Snake snickered and swung his snake tail to sweep Elvis away. Elvis was like a broken doll that was thrown against the wall. Then, his whole body fell down. A huge hole was smashed into the wall. Some gravel fell onto Elvis's body. Elvis coughed and a mouthful of blood flowed down from the side of his lips. But he gritted his teeth and stood up again. He swayed and rushed towards Snake. Snake squinted his eyes. With an obvious murderous intent, he said coldly, courting death. The snake tail swung again but stopped less than a meter away from Elvis. Snake frowned and looked down at Gu Meng Meng who had buried her face in his arms. He called out coldly, Tu Meng. Gu Meng Meng looked up at Snake with her mouth full of blood. Tears streamed down her face and the corners of her lips drooped. She said in a nasal voice, I won't allow you to hurt my hubby. I won't. Snake looked at the wound on his arm where a piece of flesh had been bitten off. He turned to Elvis with a dark face and swung his tail down without hesitation. Then, he scooped Gu Meng Meng up into his arms. He gritted his teeth and said, Stupid woman. Before he finished his sentence, he had already dashed out of the cave towards a waterfall. Snake threw Gu Meng Meng into the waterfall and kept pouring water into her mouth. Then, he pressed his fingers against her throat to force her to vomit. Only when she had vomited out all her bile did Snake carry her ashore with furrowed brows. He started a fire and dried her wet body. Gu Meng Meng's brows were still tightly furrowed and she shut her eyes tightly. Her entire body was burning hot but she hugged herself and shouted that she was cold. His face was ashen and his lips were purple. It was obvious that he had been poisoned. Snake transformed into a half-orc and wrapped himself around Gu Meng Meng. Then, he pried open her mouth and stuck his snake tongue into her mouth. Inch by inch, he cleaned up the blood that she had accidentally swallowed just now along her throat. Even the air exhaled by the 1,000-year-old Snake King was poisonous. This stupid woman had bitten through his skin and swallowed his blood. She was really courting death. For thousands of years, no one had ever dared to offend him like this. She was the first one, and also the only one. According to his temperament, he should have just left her on the spot and watched as her body festered to death because of her own stupidity. But just by seeing her frown, he actually felt that it was difficult to breathe. Chapter 536. Mighty Snake King. A clear male voice rang from the other side of the waterfall. Snake did not turn back to look at him, only saying coldly, "Scram." Cole was not angry, he just maintained his usual calm tone and said, "Mighty Snake King, don't be angry, I just want to give you a suggestion. That snow fox might be the best candidate to take care of this little female." Snake glanced at him coldly and laughed sinisterly. "Do you think that fox can cure me of my poison?" Cole lowered his head and said, "Of course not. Only you can detoxify your poison. But females are different from males, their bodies are too weak. If they don't nurse themselves well, they might not be able to hold on." Snake's beast pressure exploded, instantly suppressing Cole. He carried Gu Meng Meng up and turned to leave, not even giving Cole a supercilious look. Back at the cave, the huge pile of fruits had already been buried according to Gu Meng Meng's instructions. No one knew if new fruit trees could grow, but the cave was clean. Snake circled Gu Meng Meng with his tail, forcing the poison out of her body over and over again. The purple on her lips had already faded, but her face was still green and she remained unconscious. At first, he could still feed her some water, but later on, she could not even pry open her teeth. The tighter Snake hugged her, the more she trembled. In the end, Snake could only place Gu Meng Meng on the stone platform, before instructing a little snake to find Leah. When Leah dragged his weak body into the cave, he saw a barely breathing Gu Meng Meng curled up on a stone platform. Snake stood far away, staring at Gu Meng Meng without blinking. Gu Meng Meng's body trembled. Leah did not greet Snake, because he had nothing to say. As a third level, he was weaker than an ant in front of a beast king. He did not want to waste his breath saying some heroic words, he wanted to make the best use of every second to take good care of Gu Meng Meng. Carrying Gu Meng Meng in his arms, Leah transformed into a half-orc and used his large tail to wrap Gu Meng Meng up tightly. He used his tongue to lightly lick Gu Meng Meng's little nose, gently rubbing against her ear, using a deep and affectionate voice to whisper into her ear, "Meng Meng, I'm here. Don't be afraid, don't be afraid. You have to hold on, okay? You promised that you wouldn't leave me alone." Snake clenched his fists tightly behind him. He also wanted to hug Gu Meng Meng like that, but this damned body did not have the same warmth as that fox. His blood was cold and no matter how tightly he hugged her, he would never be able to warm her at all. Leah pressed his face against Gu Meng Meng's face gently, caressing Gu Meng Meng's arm while saying, "I need Elvis to help me, I can't make Meng Meng recover by myself." Snake frowned and said, "Just tell me what you need, I can also satisfy you." Leah sneered and glanced sideways at Snake. Elvis is her first partner. The sense of security he can give her is something that no one else can replace. Snake's pupils trembled and turned into a vertical line, before slowly returning to normal. He stuck his tongue out at the entrance of the cave. Not long after, Elvis was also brought over. Chapter 537. Elvis furrowed his brows tightly and hugged Gu Meng Meng in his arms, whispering softly, "Xiao Meng, I'm here, I'm here." Leah stood up and walked to Snake's side, saying, "I need prey. Please allow me to hunt in the Snake King Valley." Snake did not say a word and just gave a look to the little snakes behind him. Not long later, many little snakes carried their prey and swam in, stopping in front of Leah. Leah checked the prey one by one and his expression became more serious, asking, "You're giving Gu Meng Meng this to eat?" Snake was displeased, saying, "This is the best prey in the Snake King Valley." Leah pointed to a hole on the prey's body, saying, "Your hunting method is to inject poison into the prey's body to make them lose their ability to resist. This poison is nothing to you, but it will take Gu Mingming's life." Snake was taken aback, as if he did not think of this detail at the start. He frowned and muttered, "No wonder I vomited so badly the last time. If Gu Meng Meng was sober now, she would definitely complain. Brother, I vomited so badly the last time because you roasted me with your skin and hair, all right? It had nothing to do with poison." "No." Snake looked at Elvis, who was hugging Gu Meng Meng, feeling increasingly irritated. His chest was so stuffy, maybe going out to hunt was a good way to relieve it. Thinking about this, Snake said with a cold face, "You stay here to take care of Tu Meng, I'll go out to hunt." Leah did not comment, this was someone else's territory. If Snake did not nod, no matter how capable he and Elvis were, they would not be able to hunt any edible prey. Moreover, Snake's presence felt weird. Leah was more than happy for him to get out. Snake turned into his beast form the moment he left the cave, his body like a train, driving straight into the depths of the forest. He originally wanted to vent his anger, but he instinctively avoided those fruit trees that were on the verge of extinction. Damn it! Snake stood in front of a fruit tree and really wanted to use his tail to break this obstacle, but the image of Gu Mingming's regretful and heartache towards the pile of fruits kept appearing in his mind. After swinging his tail twice, Snake still went around that fruit tree and continued forward. Meanwhile, in the cave, Elvis and Lee's hearts were extremely heavy. As males, they knew too well what the difference in power meant. In the afternoon, they could still lie to themselves that Snake seemed to be very interested in Gu Meng Meng. If he just wanted to mate with Gu Meng Meng, they would not object to having another Beast King level member in their family. Even if she wanted Elvis to hand over his position as the first partner, Elvis would personally end her with a smile on his face, giving up the position to this perversely powerful Snake King. Because with him around, no one in the entire beast world would have the ability to hurt a single strand of Gu Mingming's hair. But it had only been half a day since they last met, and look at how much Gu Meng Meng had been tortured by him. Elvis hugged Gu Meng Meng tightly, his brows furrowed as he asked, "If we escape, what are the chances of success?" Leah glanced disdainfully at the colorful snakes blocking the cave entrance and said, "These snakes are just wild beasts, but they are extremely poisonous. With my abilities, I won't be able to take more than 5 steps if my skin is scratched. You're a little better than me. You can probably run 10 steps." Chapter 538. It's no use. Leah patted Elvis's shoulder and signaled him to retract his beast pressure. They are snakes that have been following Snake around all year round and are long used to the Beast King's coercion. Our normal coercion is completely useless in front of them. Elvis remained silent. Seeing how weak Gu Meng Meng was, his heart ached to the extreme. He could only ask in a low voice, "Then what do we do now?" "I'm afraid Xiao Meng can't hold on." Leah caressed Gu Mingming's little face gently. He then looked at Elvis and asked, "How's your stamina now?" Elvis looked at Leah from the corner of his eyes, waiting for him to continue. Leah said, "The poison has caused the blood in Xiao Meng's body to start coagulating. You have to let Meng Meng's blood flow so that the antidote Snake placed in her body can take effect. But you were just beaten up by Snake, can you still hold on?" Elvis clenched his teeth and smiled bitterly. "Even if I can't just let Xiao Meng die like this." Leah pursed his lips and said, "If you really can't hold on, I can do it." Elvis stared at Leah for a moment and smiled. I won't let Xiao Meng mate with you against her own will. Leah nodded. Then I'll stand guard at the side. Hurry up and finish it before Snake returns, in case he goes crazy and hurts Gu Meng Meng. Elvis nodded and carried Gu Meng Meng to the deepest part of the cave. He removed his beast skin dress and laid it under Gu Meng Meng's body. He then gently removed her dress and kissed her fragrant shoulder. He whispered into her ear, Xiao Meng, do you know? I love to see you become emotional because of me. So, if you can do it, respond to me, alright? Compared to this quietness, I love it even more when you hug my neck and say you love me. Elvis's kiss traveled up Gu Meng Meng's collarbone and finally covered both of her lips. His nimble tongue forcefully pried open her tightly clenched teeth. Before he could conquer her territory, his mouth was filled with the taste of blood. Elvis groaned in pain but refused to retract his tongue. He sucked on Gu Meng Meng's lips and used his blood to nourish her body. It had only been 2 days, but Gu Meng Meng had obviously lost so much weight. Snake must not have taken good care of her, she probably had not eaten anything these few days. The blood of a level 5 beast was very nutritious. If he could help Xiao Meng regain some of her strength, even if his tongue was bitten off and he bled to death, so what? Elvis caressed Gu Meng Meng's arm with his big hands, trying his best to help her circulate blood. His big tail swept Gu Meng Meng's legs, trying his best to take care of every part of her body. But even so, Gu Meng Meng did not respond at all. She just laid there quietly like a porcelain doll that had lost her soul. She shut her eyes tightly, frowned and her teeth chattered. Elvis turned all his energy into love and gave it all to Gu Meng Meng. Then, he suddenly lost all his energy like a toy whose battery had been depleted. He laid on Gu Meng Meng's body and lost consciousness. Leah smiled bitterly as he dealt with the aftermath. He first carried Elvis to one side, then used a beast skin to wipe Gu Meng Meng's body clean. Then, he hugged her tightly in his arms, using his own body temperature to maintain Gu Meng Meng's body temperature that had risen after much difficulty. Even though the lingering aura on her body was torturing him physically and mentally, Leah only wished for her to be alive at this moment. Just living in peace would be enough. Aside from the topic, do I still need to explain what is in the ellipsis? Come, verify the group number, 4927799273. Chapter 539. When Snake dragged his prey, whose bones had been crushed inch by inch, back, he sharply sensed the dispirited aura in the cave. With his eyes straightened, he attacked Elvis at lightning speed. If you kill him, Gu Meng won't be able to live. Leah spoke calmly, finishing the last word just as Snake's fangs were about to touch Elvis's artery. The blood vessels on Snake's face flowed rapidly and his lower body was in the shape of a snake. One could almost see the snake's scales rising slightly. He wanted to kill Gu Meng Meng without a care in the world, but when his gaze landed on Gu Meng Meng's face, which was no longer ghastly pale, he recalled the words she said when she bit him in the day and the tearful look on her face. Snake forcefully stopped his attack and slammed his thick tail onto the ground, creating a pit. The plump prey was thrown at the entrance of the cave, and Snake swam out of the cave to vent his anger wantonly in the valley. An ancient tree was uprooted, and the tree trunks were crushed into sawdust by Snake's tail. But in the end, none of the destroyed trees were fruit trees. Leah placed Gu Meng Meng in Elvis's arms, and even though Elvis was unconscious, he still hugged Gu Meng Meng tightly. And Gu Meng Meng also tilted her head slightly, pressing her face against Elvis's chest, listening to his heartbeat. He was sleeping so peacefully. Leah dragged his weak body to deal with the prey. He looked at the little snakes guarding the cave entrance, and tried to take a step forward. The little snakes did not stop Leah from leaving, so it was obvious that Snake's instructions were only for Gu Meng Meng alone. That was good too. Leah carried the prey out of the cave, and instinctively found a water source to wash and deal with the prey Snake brought back. This fellow should have always swallowed them alive. This hunting method of crushing the bones and stabbing them into the flesh was too perverted. Leah could almost imagine how Snake had been thinking about how to vent his anger when he was hunting. Shaking his head helplessly, he carefully removed every piece of bone from the meat, and then cut the meat into pieces. By the time Leah settled everything and returned, Elvis had already woken up and was staring at Snake with widened eyes. Perhaps the radiation from the collision of their gazes was too strong, causing Gu Mengmeng to feel a sense of pressure. Frowning, she moaned and felt a gush of warmth licking her face. Gu Mengmeng squinted her eyes, and when she saw Elvis's face, the corners of her lips could not help but curve upwards. She lifted her arm that was as heavy as lead and hooked it around Elvis's neck. Using the force, she flipped her body towards Elvis and found a relatively comfortable position to nestle in Elvis's arms. She murmured, "Hubby, I had a weird dream just now." Elvis kissed her hair gently and asked, "What did you dream about?" Gu Mingming's throat was a little dry and she coughed softly. Leah passed over a cup of water at the right time and Elvis drank a small sip before passing it to Gu Mengmeng with his lips. After moistening her throat, Gu Mengmeng continued, "I dreamed that I could not move no matter what. I clearly heard you calling me, but I could not respond to you, then. I even did something shameful." Elvis chuckled and rubbed Gu Mingming's waist, saying, "Silly, that was not a dream." Chapter 540. Gu Mengmeng instinctively opened her arms to protect Elvis, looking at Snake warily, not daring to say a word. The pain all over her body, as if she had been run over by a car, told her what she had just experienced. But it was not illegal to sleep with her own husband. Why did she feel as if she was caught in the act? Gu Mengmeng turned back to look at Elvis, nodding her head in confirmation. That's right, the one she slept with was her own husband. Seeing how Gu Mengmeng was protecting Elvis, Snake felt even more frustrated. He hooked his finger and said, "Come over, or I will kill them." Gu Mengmeng bit her lower lip, using the beast's skin to wrap herself up tightly, supporting her exhausted body to slowly take a small step towards Snake. Snake frowned, hooking his finger in his direction, gesturing for Gu Mengmeng to come closer. Gu Mengmeng turned back to look at Elvis, taking another small step towards Snake. Snake's patience had run out. He raised his snake tail and whipped it towards Elvis. Gu Mengmeng could not react in time. She reached out and pounced towards Snake's snake tail, wanting to use her own body to block this attack. Elvis's reaction was much faster than Gu Mengmeng's. Before the snake tail touched Gu Mengmeng, he turned around and protected her in his arms, using his own back to receive Snake's tail. Snake himself was also shocked by Gu Mengmeng. He held back much of his strength. If not, this whip would have directly split Elvis into two. Elvis spat out a mouthful of blood. Gu Mengmeng was so anxious that she cried, holding onto Elvis tightly, shouting, "Leah, Leah, quickly come and look at Elvis." Leah walked forward, pulled Elvis out from Gu Mingming's arms and placed him at the side, then held on to Gu Mingming's shoulders with both hands, looking straight into her eyes. He said calmly, "Don't do such things in the future, understand?" Gu Mengmeng had no idea what Leah was talking about. She just wanted Leah to quickly treat Elvis, so she nodded perfunctorily, "I know, I know, I know." Leah saw through Gu Mingming's perfunctory act. He sighed, then said in a serious tone, "Do you know that you almost scared Elvis and I to death when you were poisoned this time? If anything happens to you, we won't be able to die in peace. If we still have any weight in your heart, promise me that you will prioritize your own safety under any circumstances. As long as you're fine, the two of us can definitely pull through. Do not expose yourself to danger for anyone. Do you understand?" Elvis clutched his chest as he looked at Gu Mengmeng. His gaze was clearly the same as Lee's. Only on this point, he would not indulge Gu Mengmeng. Gu Mengmeng nodded and said, "I know, I promise I won't do it again." Hurry and take a look at Elvis, he's badly injured. Leah then released his grip and turned around to check on Elvis's injuries. Elvis gave her a reassuring smile, wanting her to believe that he was fine and that he was fine. However, his body was badly mutilated, and his face was ashen. With a single glance, one could see that he was weak and fragile. How could a smile be able to deceive the world? Snake's tail was trembling as he resisted the urge to attack. Narrowing his eyes, he used his tail to wrap Gu Meng Meng up and swam out of the cave. The night sky was as dark as ink, thick and heavy, but it could not conceal the fierce anger emanating from Snake's body. Gu Meng Meng felt as if she could see black smoke billowing from Snake's body. Digression, it's time to say goodbye to my babies again. Chapter 541. Where are we going? Gu Meng Meng asked timidly. Snake stopped in his tracks but did not turn back to look at Gu Meng Meng. To where? He had not thought about it either. He just did not want to see Gu Meng Meng and Elvis being so lovey-dovey in the cave again, so he brought Gu Meng Meng out before he killed Elvis. Snake, about biting you in the day today. I'm sorry, I apologize. Gu Meng Meng decided to be a good girl who was brave enough to admit her mistakes. Seeing Snake's back stiffen, she shivered and immediately tried to excuse herself, but that was because you hurt my hubby first, so I bit you in a moment of desperation. As the saying goes, the one who provoked me first is cheap, you are also half responsible for this. Snake took a deep breath, turned his head and said with a black face, don't ever mention your wild men in front of me again, or else I have 10,000 ways to make you watch me tear them apart, and you won't even be able to hurt yourself. Gu Meng Meng knew that Snake definitely had that kind of ability. Elvis might be strong outside, but in front of a pervert like Snake, the difference in their abilities was too great. Even someone like Gu Meng Meng, who did not really understand what the hierarchy meant, could tell that this was like a WTO wrestler beating up a primary school student. I won't mention. I won't mention, then don't be angry. Snake's face was cold as he stretched out a hand, palm facing upwards, to Meng. Gu Meng Meng reflexively placed her hand in his palm, then smiled bitterly. She was just like a domesticated pet dog. Snake held Gu Meng Meng's little hand, then his emotions calmed down. He slowly kept his snake tail and transformed back into his human form, pulling Gu Meng Meng into his arms, hugging her before letting go. Gu Meng Meng felt a little awkward. She pointed at Snake's arm and asked, does the wound still hurt? Snake looked down at the wound that had already healed completely and frowned. How did it heal so quickly? If it had not healed, would she also look at him with the same gaze she used to look at Elvis's wound? Snake thought for a moment, then placed his hand by his mouth, sticking out his poisonous fangs and biting down. What are you doing? Gu Meng Meng was shocked and reached out to grab Snake's arm. But Snake dodged backwards and said with a cold face, my blood is poisonous, you can't touch it. Gu Meng Meng retracted her hand awkwardly and took a small step back. She stretched her neck and pointed at Snake's arm. Your teeth are poisonous too, right? Snake nodded and said, deadly poison. Gu Meng Meng thought for a while and asked, so is your teeth more poisonous or your blood more poisonous? But, if you show symptoms of being poisoned, which poison should I detoxify first? Do you have the antidote? Give it to me in advance. Snake was stunned for a moment before he suddenly laughed. Are you an idiot? How did I get poisoned by myself? Gu Meng Meng stared at Snake in a daze and smiled. Isn't this great? He looked good when he smiled. Why did you have to keep a straight face all day long, as if someone owed you $8 million? Why bother? Snake was stunned by Gu Meng Meng's words. He reached out to touch the corner of his lips. He was actually, really smiling. Nice to look at. Snake asked carefully, you're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.